Hi everyone, and welcome to Ohio Nicole Creates. This week I am doing something a little bit different than I have in the past, and I will be sharing with you the process for creating this page spread in my art journal. I like to do art journaling from time to time because it is a different process for me, and it is a much lower stakes than creating something to give someone or as a gift or to mail someone. It's just a great way to give yourself a little bit of time to engage in the creative process and to just play on the paper and see what happens. So I like to make a page spread a couple of times a month and just kind of play with new techniques and colors and see what happens, see what comes out on the page. So the process that I am doing this week is actually inspired by a tutorial from Peterson of Let's Make Art. And Jess has created a bunch of different tutorials, a plethora of tutorials on the Let's Make Art YouTube page. So I will link down to one of her tutorials below. And she did an entire journal series with a galaxy theme. And so I'm using that kind of galaxy wash here to create my page spread. And what I'm attempting to do is to make the color darker on the edges and lighter in the middle so that once I place my silhouette, it looks as if she's illuminated a bit from behind. And in order to do this, I lay the water down and then I just mix the pigment on the page to get the shade that I would like. And I really like this black. I mix black and blue and then just a little bit of magenta to give it that purple hue. And this allows me to have that really nice kind of gradiated color effect. I love these particular journals, which are sold by Let's Make Art. They offer 10 page spreads per journal, which is great for if you would like to follow a specific theme. The Let's Make Art channel does have a new theme each month, or if you would like to just do different page spreads with different themes and different techniques as well. But the paper is actually made out of linen, so it's not quite the same as a watercolor paper, but it takes mixed media really well. And I'm able to put quite a bit of water on it to create the blooms and the streaks that I like so much in this wash. There is a little bit of piling on the paper, but I haven't found it to be too much of a problem. In order to complete the wash, I'm also using Dr. P.H. Martin's liquid watercolors, which are really great, really radiant colors, a bit different from the pans that I normally use. They are not as light fast as the pans, but since this is going in an art journal, that's not really as much of a concern for me. So I'm just adding in a little bit more purple. I want a bit more color on this page because I am planning to put a moon on this page to complement the silhouette. So in order to transfer the lines for my journal, I like to do a little bit of a sketch on just a scrap piece of paper. And then I use a piece of graphite paper to trace the image that I would like to paint onto the journal. And this works really well. I find that the lighter I push, the lighter the lines are, which is great when you're painting over it. And then to complete the image itself, I wanted a really nice dark color, so I am using liquid acrylic just so that I can have that nice liquid effect, but also have that blacker than black color. And so this is a Dr. P.H. Martin liquid acrylic, and it's a very simple process. I just kind of take my brush and I fill in the image here, just making sure to get every little bit so that the figure is as solid and as black as I can make it. There is just something really satisfying about filling in an entire image in a solid color. I love the really dark shadowed look over the watercolored background. It just really makes the figure pop. This week we have actually been moving households, so it's been a pretty stressful week as far as just getting things packed and getting things moved and put to where they need to be. So it was really nice to be able to focus on something a little bit different for just a few hours during the week and to complete a creative process. And this is a very, very simple journal, but it's just enough to just let your creativity out for a little while and kind of get outside of the box of tasks and responsibilities and all of those things that we have to do every week. So I highly recommend, even if you're feeling very stressed or feeling very low on time, sometimes just giving yourself an hour or two during the week to do something like this without concern for the outcome and without a concern for creating something specific can be really helpful and can be a really good stress reliever in my experience. For the hand, I wanted to give the appearance that the figure was making a wish or blowing a kiss to the moon, which I will be completing in just a minute. So I arched her hand as if she were blowing a kiss. And I will fully admit I am not an artist as far as line drawing and getting those really precise shapes that so many amazing artists do. So when I'm doing something simple like this, sometimes I will just look at an image that I find appealing and just try to do the most basic version of that image that I can. So that's what I did with this. I just looked at a lot of images and put different elements from images together until I found what it is that I wanted. Now, to move on to the next step, of course, I do let that liquid acrylic dry, and it dries pretty quickly when you apply a thin layer. And then I go back to the original sketch that I did, and I cut the silhouette out so that I have the negative on the paper. And then once I've placed this paper back over what I've painted, I go in and create the galaxy effect. And in order to do this, I water down some liquid white, bleed-proof white, and a little bit of gold. And this is the P.H. Martin's copper ink. And I really love this because it's very bold, but it is an ink instead of a paint. And just by tapping the paintbrush against my finger, I am able to create what I hope looks like a galaxy of stars or a sky within the silhouette of the woman. The next thing I want to create is a moon, and I think it's really fun when you're doing an art journal to just use objects around your home and kind of be imprecise and a little bit messy. So I just found an object that was about the size that I wanted and started to paint a moon onto it. With the moon, it wasn't very precise. I just wanted to put in some shadows and some dimension, and I am using gelatos, which are a lot of fun to use. They are very creamy. You can add water to them to get a lot of different textures, and so I find that they're easiest to use just to kind of rub onto the pan and then add a little bit of water for the consistency that you would like. And it doesn't really translate well to the camera, but the silver gelato I used has a little bit of a sheen to it, so it almost looks as if the moon is glowing. And just like I do with my other watercolor projects, I just like to work in a lot of layers until I get the color that I want. Since this is all about playing and learning new things and just kind of seeing what happens, oftentimes I will blend the colors right on the paper and that helps. And I'm actually using watercolor paper for the moon, just so that the colors will move around a little bit more for me than they do with the journal itself. And one tip that I have, if you would like to do any kind of art journaling, or if you don't already, is to always save your scraps from other projects. So this is a birthday card that I started to make, and I didn't like the way it was going. And so I kind of chucked it, but I kept it, and it ended up being just the perfect size for the moon that I needed. And then on the other side of the paper, I am just making a nice kind of violet wash for the quote, which will set on top of the sky. So I like to have just a bit more of a contrasting kind of color to make it stand out, and I end up going with a bit more magenta. And for each journal spread that I do, I like to have some kind of, I guess, food for thought. So a quote, or a piece of poetry, or something that inspired me to create this particular spread. And so what I'm doing here is I am just creating the backdrop for that wash for that quote, and then I wanted to make it look just a little bit messy, so I am ripping the quote background into the size that I need, and then I will write the quote directly on this and post it into the journal. I want to be sure that I have all 4 sides, and you want to be sure if you do any kind of deckled edge like this, just to make sure that your paper is completely dry. The drier the paper is, the easier it will rip for you. So I probably should have waited just a little bit longer, but I wanted to be sure to get my project done while I had that little window of time this week. And then finally, I add the quote, which was the last element of my page spread, and I chose a quote by Alan Watts about how we are all part of the universe, and the universe is looking through us. So to finish up the journal, I just glue everything in where I want it. And I have found through, of course, tutorials that I've watched and on the recommendation of Jess Peterson, that this Yes Paste just works really, really well. It holds, and it takes a little bit longer to dry. So if you put something down and you don't necessarily like the way that it looks, you can make some small adjustments before it dries. So you can see me here creating a tower of objects to weight that moon down so that all of the sides dry, and just like painting in those black silhouettes. I don't know, I feel like it's a lot of fun to use your fingers to spread that paste around, going back to grade school. So once everything is dried, that is my completed page spread for this week, and it was so much fun to make this and just take a little bit of time for myself this week as I was working. So thank you everyone for watching, and I wish you the best this week, and I hope you find some time to do a little bit of art journaling as well. Bye.